Commander Zekthara adjusted his breathing apparatus as the transport vessel descended through Earth's thick atmosphere. The Galactic Defense Council had sent their finest warriors from 12 different species to evaluate humanity's military capabilities before offering them membership in the Interstellar Alliance. What they found would either make humans valuable allies or dangerous enemies that needed immediate attention. The blue and green planet below looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. Zekthara had studied the initial reports from the first contact team. Humans lived on what the galaxy classified as a Class 12 death world. With gravity twice the standard, an atmosphere so rich in oxygen it could fuel explosive fires, and weather patterns violent enough to level cities. Most civilized species would require environmental suits just to survive on the surface for more than a few minutes. "Sir, we're receiving landing coordinates from the human military facility," reported Lieutenant Vexani, her scaled hands dancing across the control panel. "They're directing us to something called Fort Bragg in a region they call North Carolina." Zekthara nodded, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display. The assembled team represented the galaxy's military elite. The towering Krillian heavy assault specialists, the agile Zentari stealth operatives, the cybernetically enhanced mechanoids, and representatives from 8 other warrior cultures. Each had volunteered for this mission, confident that their species' military traditions would far surpass anything these primitive humans could demonstrate. The ship touched down on a concrete landing pad surrounded by simple structures that seemed almost crude compared to the soaring spires and energy-based architecture common throughout civilized space. Zekthara stepped off the transport first, his environmental suit immediately registering the planet's hostile conditions. The gravity tried to crush him to his knees, and the oxygen-rich air made his sensors flash warning signals about fire hazards. A small group of humans waited to greet them. The aliens had expected to meet warriors adorned in ceremonial armor or bearing the technological enhancements that marked elite soldiers across the galaxy. Instead, they found beings that looked almost fragile in simple camouflaged uniforms. The lead human stepped forward and removed his head covering, revealing features that seemed soft and vulnerable compared to the hardened exterior shells, natural armor plating, and reinforced bone structures of the visiting species. "Welcome to Earth," the human said in accented but understandable Standard Galactic. "I'm General Morrison. We're honored to host the Galactic Defense Council evaluation team." Zekthara studied the human through his helmet's advanced sensors. Morrison stood barely 2 meters tall, possessed no visible natural weapons, and showed none of the battle scarring that marked experienced warriors throughout the galaxy. His skin looked thin enough that a sharp edge could easily penetrate it, and his limbs appeared to lack the dense muscle mass or reinforced bone structure necessary for serious combat. "General Morrison," Zekthara replied, his translator converting his native clicking and whistling into human speech patterns. "We appreciate your cooperation with this evaluation process. The Council is curious about humanity's military capabilities and how they might contribute to galactic defense." Morrison smiled, an expression that several of the alien warriors interpreted as a threat display until their cultural briefings reminded them that humans showed pleasure by baring their teeth. "We've prepared a comprehensive demonstration of our capabilities. If you'll follow me, we'll start with a tour of our basic training facilities." The group moved through the military base, and the aliens found themselves increasingly puzzled by what they observed. Human soldiers engaged in physical conditioning that seemed designed for beings already living in extreme conditions. They ran long distances carrying heavy equipment, performed exercises that appeared to stress their bodies beyond reasonable limits, and trained in environments that simulated combat scenarios more brutal than anything the visiting species used in their own military preparation. Captain Thandos, the Krillian heavy assault specialist, watched a group of human trainees completing an obstacle course. His species stood 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and strength enough to crush stone with their bare hands. Yet these small, apparently fragile humans were moving through challenges that would test even Krillian warriors. and they were doing it without powered assistance or technological enhancement. Their training regimen appears unnecessarily harsh. Thandos commented to his companions through the private communication channel. They seem to be compensating for physical inadequacy through extreme conditioning. Lieutenant Silvara, the Zentari stealth operative, studied the humans with her enhanced visual spectrum. Her species had evolved natural camouflage abilities and reflexes quick enough to avoid most weapons' fire. I'm reading unusual stress markers in their physiology. Their bodies are constantly producing chemicals that would indicate extreme danger in most species. Yet they appear to function normally. Morrison led them to an indoor firing range where human soldiers were training with various weapons. The aliens expected to see energy weapons, plasma rifles, or at least some form of technological enhancement that would compensate for human physical limitations. Instead, they found humans using projectile weapons that seemed primitive by galactic standards. "These are our standard small arms," Morrison explained, picking up what he called an M4 carbine. Fires a 5.56 mm round using chemical propellant. Effective range of about 500 meters for accurate fire. The alien warriors exchanged glances. Most galactic military forces had abandoned chemical projectile weapons thousands of years ago in favor of energy-based systems that could penetrate advanced armor and didn't require physical ammunition. Captain Thandos stepped forward, his massive frame dwarfing the human general. "With respect, General Morrison, our initial scans indicate these weapons would be ineffective against standard military protection used throughout the galaxy. How do you expect to engage hostile forces equipped with energy shields and adaptive armor?" Morrison's smile widened slightly. "Would you like to see a demonstration of accuracy and application?" Without waiting for an answer, Morrison called over a human soldier who appeared to be in his early 20s. The young man looked even less impressive than the general. Standing perhaps 1.8 meters tall with a lean build that suggested he might have trouble lifting heavy equipment. "This is Sergeant Williams," Morrison said. "He completed sniper training 6 months ago. Williams, show our guests what you can do with the Barrett." Williams nodded and moved to a specialized weapon that was significantly larger than the carbine Morrison had shown them. The aliens watched as he assumed a prone position behind the rifle, his movements precise and economical. Through the range's observation system, they could see targets positioned at what their sensors indicated was over 1,000 meters away. "Target is a standard 12-inch steel plate at 1,200 meters, Williams said calmly. "Wind from the southeast at approximately 8 kilometers per hour. Temperature 22 degrees Celsius, humidity 65%. The alien's advanced sensors confirmed his environmental assessment was accurate to within decimal points. Williams made minute adjustments to his weapon, his breathing becoming slow and controlled. When he fired, the sound was deafening in the enclosed space, and the alien's environmental suits automatically activated hearing protection on the display screen. They watched the distant target ring like a bell as the projectile struck dead center. Williams fired again and again, each shot hitting within centimeters of the previous impact point. The alien sensors indicated the projectile was traveling at over 900 meters per second and striking with enough kinetic energy to penetrate most standard armor plating. "Impressive. Accuracy for primitive technology," admitted Major Kexelen, the Vorthan tactical specialist. His species had developed some of the galaxy's most advanced targeting systems, requiring neural implants and computer assistance to achieve precision at long range. However, the limited rate of fire and ammunition constraints would make this impractical in sustained combat. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "You're right about rate of fire. That's why we have other systems for different tactical situations. Would you like to see our crew-served weapons?" He led them to another section of the training facility where human soldiers were operating what Morrison called a Madus, a heavy machine gun that fired projectiles larger than the sniper rifle but at a much higher rate. The aliens watched as the weapon sent a stream of projectiles downrange, tearing apart target vehicles and barriers with concentrated fire. "This system can maintain sustained fire for extended periods," Morrison explained over the weapon's thunderous noise. Effective against light vehicles and personnel, at ranges up to 1,800 meters. The demonstration continued with mortar that could place explosive projectiles accurately at ranges beyond direct sight, rocket-propelled grenades that could penetrate armored vehicles, and squad automatic weapons that provided suppressive fire for advancing troops. Each system seemed designed to solve specific tactical problems, and the aliens began to notice that humans had developed extensive doctrine for employing these weapons in combination. What puzzled them most was the ease with which the evaluation team assembled before dawn at what General Morrison called the Special Operations Command Headquarters. The alien warriors had spent a restless night analyzing the previous day's demonstrations, their various data processing systems struggling to reconcile what they had observed with their preconceptions about human military capabilities. Commander, Zekthara noticed that this facility had a different atmosphere than the regular training base. The humans they encountered moved with a quiet confidence that was somehow more unsettling than the obvious competence of the paratroopers they had observed. These soldiers seemed to blend into their environment even when standing in plain sight, and their awareness of everything around them was so acute it made Zekthara's natural predator instincts uncomfortable. "Good morning," Morrison said, appearing beside them so quietly that several of the aliens activated defensive protocols before recognizing him. "I'd like you to meet Colonel Sarah Chun, commander of our demonstration unit." The woman who stepped forward was perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with a lean build that suggested speed rather than brute strength. Like Morrison, she appeared almost fragile compared to the visiting warriors, yet something in her manner made it clear that appearances were deeply misleading. Her eyes held a calculating intelligence that reminded Zekthara of apex predators he had encountered on dozens of worlds. "Welcome to SOCOM," Chun said, her voice carrying an authority that seemed disproportionate to her size. "We've arranged several demonstrations. That should give you insight into human special operations capabilities." She led them to a briefing room where holographic displays showed a detailed three-dimensional model of what appeared to be a terrorist compound. The layout was complex with multiple buildings, defensive positions, and civilian areas that would complicate any assault. "This is a replica of a facility we assaulted 3 months ago," Chun explained. Hostile forces had taken approximately 30 civilians hostage and were threatening to execute them unless their political demands were met. The structure was heavily defended, the hostiles were well armed and prepared for a conventional assault, and we had a 12-hour window before they began killing prisoners. Captain Thandos studied the tactical display. His military experience told him this was exactly the kind of scenario where overwhelming force was the only reliable solution. Blast through the defenses, accept casualties among both attackers and hostages, and secure the objective through superior firepower. It was brutal but effective, and most galactic military forces would approach it exactly that way. "How many troops did you deploy for the assault?" he asked. 12, Chun replied simply. The alien warriors exchanged glances. 12 soldiers against a fortified position with multiple defenders and hostage complications. Even with advanced technology, most species would consider that suicide. With primitive human weapons and equipment, it seemed like elaborate execution. 12 soldiers, repeated Major Kexelen slowly. Against how many defenders? Intelligence estimated between 40 and 60 hostile forces, plus unknown security measures and booby traps, Chun said as if discussing the weather. "We'll show you how the operation was conducted." She activated the holographic display, and suddenly the briefing room was filled with a perfect reproduction of the compound at night. The aliens found themselves standing in the middle of the tactical scenario, able to observe from any angle as events unfolded. The operation began at 0200 hours with insertion via helicopter at a distance of 8 kilometers from the target. Chun narrated as ghostly figures appeared in the display. 2 6-man teams approached from different vectors to establish observation and sniper positions. The Evaluation team watched as tiny human figures moved across terrain that would challenge most galactic species even in daylight. These operators seemed to flow like liquid shadow, using every bit of cover and concealment to approach their objective undetected. Their movement was so fluid and natural that even Lieutenant Silvara's enhanced senses had difficulty tracking them through the holographic replay. Primary sniper team established overwatch position here, Chun continued, highlighting a building 800 meters from the compound. Secondary team took position here, providing coverage of the rear approaches. Both teams had to eliminate sentries without alerting the main force. The display showed human snipers engaging targets at extreme range with what appeared to be single, precisely placed shots. Each target dropped instantly, with no opportunity to raise an alarm or call for assistance. The accuracy was beyond what most galactic species could achieve with their best technology. Yet these humans were using the same primitive projectile weapons the evaluation team had seen the previous day. Simultaneously, the assault team approached the main compound using urban infiltration techniques, Chun said. 8 more ghostly figures appeared in the display, moving through areas that seemed completely open to observation. Yet somehow, they remained invisible to the compound's security forces. Using shadows, structural blind spots, and timing to approach within striking distance of their targets, what amazed the alien observers was not just the stealth capability, but the coordination. All 3 teams were operating independently across several kilometers, yet their actions were perfectly synchronized. When the assault team reached their positions, the sniper teams were ready to provide precise fire support, and every element knew exactly when and where to execute their part of the mission. Entry was achieved through simultaneous breach of 4 different access points, Chun continued. The display showed human soldiers using explosive charges to create openings in walls, windows, and doors, all at exactly the same moment. Speed and surprise were essential to prevent execution of hostages. The aliens watched in fascination as human operators flowed through the breached openings like water finding the lowest level. Each soldier seemed to know instinctively where threats would appear and how to eliminate them with minimal exposure to return fire. Their movements were economical, precise, and devastatingly effective. Commander Zekthera had observed combat operations throughout the galaxy, but he had never seen anything quite like this. These humans moved through close-quarters battle scenarios with a fluidity that spoke of thousands of hours of training. Yet there was something more. They seemed to anticipate their enemies' reactions, positioning themselves to exploit mistakes before those mistakes were made. Total time from entry to securing all hostages was 11 minutes. Chun said as the display showed the final phases of the operation. All hostile forces were eliminated, all hostages were recovered alive and uninjured, and friendly casualties were 0. The holographic replay faded, leaving the evaluation team in stunned silence. Major Kexelin's tactical analysis programs were working overtime, trying to understand how 12 soldiers had achieved what should have required an entire battalion. The precision, coordination, and individual competence demonstrated in the operation exceeded anything in his military experience. The weapons and equipment used were standard issue? Asked Lieutenant Vexani, her voice carrying obvious disbelief. Modified for special operations requirements. But fundamentally the same technology you observed yesterday, Chun confirmed. Would you like to see some of our operators demonstrate their individual capabilities? She led them to a training facility that seemed designed to simulate every possible combat environment. Urban settings, wilderness terrain, underwater obstacles, extreme weather conditions, and scenarios that would test the limits of both equipment and human endurance. The aliens expected to see humans struggling with challenges that would be routine for most galactic species. Instead, they found operators who seemed equally comfortable in any environment. The first demonstration involved what Chun called close-quarters combat. A human operator, who introduced himself simply as Mike, faced off against robotic opponents programmed to simulate various galactic species' combat capabilities. The robots were faster, stronger, and more durable than any human could be. Yet Mike systematically defeated each one using techniques that turned their advantages against them. Captain Thandos watched in amazement as Mike used leverage, timing, and what appeared to be an intuitive understanding of physics to defeat opponents that should have crushed him easily. When facing a robot programmed with Krillian strength and natural armor, Mike avoided direct confrontation and instead attacked weak points with precisely applied force. Against a Zentari-speed opponent, he used predictive positioning to be where his enemy wasn't expecting him. "How does he move like that?" Thandos asked Chun quietly. "His reaction time appears to exceed biological limitations. Training, experience, and something we call situational awareness," Chun replied. "Our operators learn to read their environment, opponents so effectively that they can anticipate threats before they fully develop." The next demonstration involved what Chun called survival and evasion skills. The evaluation team watched as human operators were placed in simulated, hostile territory and tasked with reaching extraction points while avoiding capture. The scenarios were designed to challenge even species with natural advantages in stealth, speed, or environmental adaptation, yet the humans seemed to thrive in conditions that would defeat most. The final day of the evaluation began at a classified facility deep in the Nevada desert. The alien representatives had been transported by military aircraft to a location that their sensors indicated was heavily shielded against outside observation. What they found there would fundamentally change their understanding of human military capability and Earth's readiness. To join the galactic community, General Morrison met them at the entrance to an underground complex that stretched far beyond what their sensors could penetrate. "Welcome to our advanced warfare testing facility," he said. "Today you'll observe exercises designed to simulate combat against opponents equipped with technology equivalent to galactic military standards." Commander Zekthara felt his breathing apparatus adjust automatically as they descended into the facility. The construction was more advanced than anything they had seen during their visit, with materials and techniques that suggested human technology was not as primitive as initial assessments had indicated. Energy shields protected critical areas, and automated defense systems that looked remarkably similar to galactic standard equipment tracked their movement through the corridors. "General Morrison," Zekthara said carefully, "these systems appear to be based on technology that humans should not possess." Morrison's smile was more serious today, lacking the casual friendliness they had grown accustomed to. "We've been preparing for contact with galactic civilization for longer than you might expect, Commander. Our intelligence services are quite thorough." The implications of that statement sent alarm signals through every alien representative. If humans had been preparing for galactic contact, it meant they had been aware of the greater galaxy's existence before official first contact. That suggested intelligence gathering capabilities that no one had suspected. They entered an observation chamber overlooking a massive underground arena. The space was large enough to simulate planetary surface conditions, complete with varied terrain, atmospheric controls, and holographic systems that could create any tactical environment. At the center of the arena, the evaluation team could see human soldiers preparing equipment that was definitely not primitive by any standard. Today's exercise involves a company of our Rangers facing simulated opponents, equipped with standard galactic military technology, Morrison explained. Energy weapons, personal shields, advanced sensors, and tactical systems equivalent to what most Council species field in actual combat operations. Colonel Chun joined them in the observation area, now wearing a uniform that bore insignia the aliens didn't recognize. "The scenario is straightforward," she said. "Our forces must secure a defended position held by enemies with superior technology and numerical advantage. Success is defined as eliminating all hostile forces while suffering minimal casualties." Captain Thandos studied the tactical display showing the exercise setup. The defending force consisted of robotic units equipped with energy shields that could deflect most projectile weapons, plasma rifles with significantly greater range and penetration than human firearms, and sensor systems that should make concealment impossible. The defenders also had numerical superiority and defensive positions that would challenge any attacking force. Your soldiers are facing opponents with technology that makes their weapons ineffective. Thandos observed. How do they expect to achieve success? Watch and see, Morrison replied simply. The exercise began with what appeared to be a conventional assault. Human soldiers advanced across open ground, using cover and movement techniques the aliens had observed during previous demonstrations. The defending robots responded predictably, using their superior firepower and defensive positions to engage the attacking humans. For the first few minutes, it appeared the exercise would end quickly with human casualties mounting against superior technology. Energy weapons cut through human cover positions, and defensive shields deflected the projectiles that human soldiers were able to fire accurately. The aliens watching began to think they were observing a demonstration of human limitations rather than capabilities. Then something changed. Lieutenant Silvara was the first to notice that the human casualty reports were inconsistent with what her sensors indicated. Soldiers who should have been eliminated by energy weapon hits were continuing to function and fight. Investigation with her enhanced visual spectrum revealed that the humans were wearing protection that somehow absorbed or deflected energy weapon fire. They have adaptive armor, she announced to her companions, disbelief clear in her voice. Their protection is neutralizing galactic standard energy weapons. But the surprises were only beginning. As the exercise continued, human soldiers began employing weapons and tactics that bore no resemblance to the primitive technology they had demonstrated earlier. Electromagnetic pulse devices disabled robot defenders' electronic systems. Directed energy weapons that appeared to be human-manufactured cut through defensive shields. And what could only be described as gravity. Manipulation weapons crushed defensive positions that should have been impregnable. Major Kexelin's tactical analysis. Programs worked frantically to understand what he was observing. Those weapons are not primitive projectile systems, he reported. They're using electromagnetic railguns, plasma cannons, and what appears to be miniaturized particle beam technology. The most shocking development came when human soldiers began demonstrating individual capabilities that exceeded the normal parameters of their species. They moved faster than previous observations had indicated was possible, lifted equipment that should have required mechanical assistance, and demonstrated reaction times that rivaled cybernetically enhanced species. Genetic modification, breathed Lieutenant Vexani. They've enhanced their own soldiers beyond natural human limitations. Commander Zekthara watched as a single human operator eliminated an entire defensive position using a combination of advanced technology and enhanced physical capabilities. The soldier moved with speed that made him difficult to target, employed weapons that cut through advanced defenses like they were paper, and demonstrated tactical awareness that seemed almost superhuman. General Morrison, Zekthara said quietly, it appears that human military capability is significantly more advanced than your initial presentation suggested. Morrison nodded, his expression now completely serious. Everything you observed during the first 2 days represents our baseline capability, Commander. What you're seeing today is what we deploy when we encounter threats that require our full attention. The exercise concluded with human forces achieving complete success within the projected time parameters. The simulated galactic standard opposition had been eliminated with minimal human casualties, and objectives had been secured using tactics and technology that should not exist on what the galaxy considered a primitive world. As the alien representatives processed what they had witnessed, Morrison led them to a briefing room where holographic displays showed star charts, tactical assessments, and intelligence reports that made their blood run cold. We need to discuss some realities about Earth's situation, Morrison said, his tone now carrying the authority of someone who had been managing a much larger picture than anyone had suspected. Humanity has been aware of galactic civilization for approximately 15 years. Our intelligence services have been gathering information about council species, military capabilities, and political situations throughout this region of space. The holographic display showed shipping routes, military installations, and strategic resources that should have been classified beyond any possibility of human access. Yet the intelligence was not only accurate but more detailed than most galactic military commanders possessed about their own operations. How? Asked Zekthara, though part of him suspected he didn't want to know the answer. The same way we've survived and thrived on a Class 12 death world, Morrison replied. Adaptation, innovation, and refusing to accept limitations that others consider absolute. Colonel Chin activated additional displays showing human activities throughout the solar system. Mining operations on asteroids that provided resources for advanced technology manufacturing. Orbital facilities that could produce spacecraft using designs that incorporated both human innovation and reverse-engineered galactic technology, and defensive installations that could protect Earth from threats that most species couldn't even conceive of. We've been preparing for this evaluation from the moment we learned of the Council's existence, Chun explained. Everything you've observed has been designed to demonstrate that humanity doesn't need the Council's protection. We're ready to contribute as equals to galactic defense. The implications were staggering. If humans had achieved this level of capability in only 15 years, what would they be capable of given full access to galactic technology and resources? More importantly, what did this mean for the balance of power that had maintained stability throughout the galaxy for thousands of years? Major Kexelan studied the tactical assessments displayed around the briefing room. You've analyzed military capabilities of every major council species, he said. These evaluations appear to be more comprehensive than our own internal assessments. We believe in thorough preparation, Morrison replied. We also believe in